And you are live on the Joy News channel. This is where you want to be this afternoon. Why? Because the Vice President who chairs the economic management team is about to give a major speech. And this speech, as we have been told, will touch on the decision by the government to go to the IMF. This will be a significant moment indeed to get a senior person in the government to give us an insight into the decision to go to the IMF. The backdrop to this is interesting. That's what makes this very interesting and controversial. He belongs to the government and economic management team generally that has held the view for so long that there's no reason under the sun for government, for Ghana to go to the IMF, and that we are capable of managing our own affairs. We didn't need the IMF, and we're going to deal with the economic challenges brought on by COVID ourselves. And of course, we know there was a gargantuan U-turn forcing the president, the finance minister, and of course, the vice president to eat a massive humble pie. How does he explain this U-turn? How does he stand in front of the cameras? I'm talking about the vice president and justify a decision that they had so fiercely resisted for so long. And also considering his own past comments about the last time he went to the IMF, the last time a government went to the IMF, Dr. Bawumia was a champion of criticizing that government and making the point quite loudly that that was a sign of abject failure and incompetence. So how does he justify the decision to go to the IMF? We are about to hear from the man himself pretty shortly. The regular suspects are joining me in the studio for as we build up into this and also analyze what the vice president would say. Winston Amwa is with me, and Raymond Aqua as well are all with me in the studio. Before I even come to them, I want to go to the venue for this. Maxwell will join us pretty shortly. My colleague Maxwell Awagba is at the venue and will join us pretty shortly. We'll also be speaking to the Dr. Gideon Boako. Of course, you know him. He's an economist and works in the office of the Vice President, who will join us to give a detailed look at what to expect. But Winston, you, myself, Raymond on State of Play have said that the Vice President must take the bulls by the horn and speak to this. In fact, the President should have done this first, I believe. But here we are, the Vice President, Chairman of the Economic Management Team, about to speak on the finance, on the decision to go to the IMF.
Well, I mean, I agree with you with that the President should have spoken first. I'm also of the view that even before the issuance of the letter, the President should have done one of the fellow Ghanaians, as we've come to, call it, and tell all of us the reasons why we're going to be going to the IMF. Well, that wasn't done. We've seen the Information Minister and other ministers, Alan Sherman-Ting, Joseph Kujo, going round and, answering questions and telling Ghanaians why we're going to the IMF. Of course, the question has been, where is the chairman of the economic management team? And I'm one person who had always insisted that the vice president need not organize a forum to address some of these concerns. But he chose that, going to the Accra Business School where they have a strategic partnership, we'll be addressing, the reasons why we're going to the IMF. I'd love to hear from the vice president reasons why we're going to the IMF. The government has made all of us aware that because of happenings in Russia and Ukraine, because of the effects of COVID-19, we've been told of how the Ghanaian economy was doing well in 2021 until Russia decided to invade Ukraine, and that also triggered a lot of challenges, a rise in petroleum products, a rise in wheat and fertilizer, an increase in the price of wheat and fertilizer, an increase in the price of petroleum, which has triggered a huge inflation when it comes to transport, and also we've seen a huge inflation when it comes to food. The underlying principle is that today we have imported inflation higher than local inflation. And so we want to know what other things the vice president is going to be saying. Would this platform be like what we have had in the past? I do not know, and I do not suspect so, because he's not going to be speaking to party persons. This is not going to be a party event. If this were a party event, I'd say we'll probably hear the usual, how the NDC didn't do well and how the NPP is doing well. But because it is not a party thing, I would say that for once, we're going to hear something different from what we've heard in the past.
You are confident that we have something different?
I don't think so. I don't think for a very simple reason. So tell us, at one point in time, the impression is being created that we need to slightly dissociate the vice president from some of the major decisions in government, especially those taken by the finance minister. In fact, it's so clearly and glaringly made known to everybody that when we are taking a decision to actually get the e-levy and get it passed, he, in his last speech, mentioned it once or twice. No justification for it, no elucidation of it. So when the vice president comes back to do some of these things, it does suggest to somebody who has said, and let me quote this one probably, there is one of the tweets from his handle on March 24, 2015, Evans Mensah. Mr. Chairman, I'm quoting, the IMF bailout was totally avoidable if the government had listened to sound advice from many quarters much earlier, but government refused to listen. They believed in their own propaganda and said, Ethiopia, we won't listen to anyone. When government was cautioned about the scale of borrowing, the government responded that they would borrow more. Now that their propaganda has been exposed by economic reality, they are now forced to listen to the IMF. We have moved from Ethiopia to Yebeti IMF in Kwa. We will listen to only the IMF, is in quotes. And said Dr. Bawumia, IMF bailout with the anchor hold, distinguished speaker series. That was a similar platform. I do not think that the vice president then, even at the time, did not do the usual mixture of the political economy, then predominant politics with it. Now he's in government. Is he going to be able to still stand by some of these comments? Or, as he advised himself the other time, you use the formula, apologize, actually be remorseful, then take advice going forward. From the last speech, regardless of the environment, it didn't sound like he was in that posture. In fact, as of the time, the vice president still believed that economic management and the economy at the time was way better.
So this is the speech that was delivered 2 months ago?
Yeah.
On the 7th of April.
A couple of months ago, he believed the economy was way better than what they met in 2016. Then, a couple of months down the line, it cascades into where we are today. I think I would also be glad if he goes the direction of doing the apology, admission, and being remorseful and actually come out to tell us that this is how we're going to go and do things differently forward. But I suspect that learning and becoming a politician in situ now, his style will be, I want to be president going forward. I need to tell the people that this seat we are driving, even though it's now knocking on the doors of the IMF, it's not a destroyed seat. He's going to still drum up the issues of COVID, drum up the issues of what they call it, Ukraine, Russia, and tell you that recently, even the IMF is saying that what we've been saying about the economy only getting problems because of these two are very clear. When he says that, he'll move it along the line, say, can we get you out of this? We got you out of the last one. We got you out of that when we came in 2016, and we said we'll get you out of that. We have actually got into troubles now, and we are going to get you out of this one too, because we've done it before. That is the kind of message he's likely to deliver. It is politically sensible, but may not be honest and reflect the reality on the ground. But what do you expect? He needs to feed into his people's attention, because now the most important constituency he's dealing with, even though they may not be seated there, is the delegates that are likely to vote in the election when he's contesting a flag bearer. Not necessarily the Ghanaian people.
Well, you know, for me, the challenge is that, I mean, one of the most important people he'll be dealing with is because as we speak now, you have organized labor locked up in a meeting with the Minister of Education, Minister of National Security. Yeah. And at this point in time, one of the things, I mean, the last thing anybody would want to hear is you telling us that the economy is doing well. They would interpret that to be rubbing it in for them. Because the vice president, when he went to the Pentecost Convention Center in April this year, he was very categorical. And I had said that, look, I like the fact that the vice president acknowledged that the reality of the economy is how you feel in your pocket.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
Bottom line.
The bottom line is how you feel in your pocket. So today is not going to be a case of you trying to justify anything. The evidence is clear. The evidence is there for all to see. Look, prior to COVID-19, you were at a high risk of debt distress as a country. That was your outlook for 2020 before COVID-19 got into the country. So it is not an issue of COVID-19 making things too difficult for you. Yes, I mean, when you see some of these statements from the IMF, and I mean, diplomacy is very nice. I mean, we do a lot of things. Yes, we've come. We know how COVID-19 and everything has affected you. We are prepared to assist you and all of that. Yes, that's what they're going to tell everybody. Because at the back of it all, if all the reports we've heard from Parliament, and I trust Kwekwa Asante, he says that the IMF has been telling Parliament to actually approve the $1 billion. That same body would not go out there and cast a doubt on the Ghanaian economy. Yeah. Because we have said here that when it comes to the management of an economy, even the words you use matter. It is the reason why Kwabena before told Hannah Tete that the Ghanaian economy is not broke, but it's challenged. So you wouldn't expect the IMF to go out there and say that the Ghanaian economy is in distress and everything.
When they are seeking to send a signal to the investor community that there should be some belief in our system.
Exactly. So they'll send the right signal so that right signal would ensure that we're able to get loans at a reduced rate because our reserves are depleting real fast. And so, look, that's why I say, and this morning I said it, that, look, one of the things we need at this point is a buy-in from all. To get a buy-in from all, you don't start by rubbing it for people. To get a buy-in, you come and speak like a vice president and like a statesman. That is how you communicate. This is not an MPP platform. Don't go and do the usual politics. The usual politics has been done already. Kojo Oponkroma and others have been there to talk about this is not the NDC kind of IMF. So when you are coming to speak as the second most important person in this country, they want to hear something different. There should be a rallying call. Get everybody to agree with you that, look, where we find ourselves, you could just start and apologize and move on.
Okay. Dr. Gideon Boako joins us now. He is in the office of the Vice President, speaks for the Vice President, and joins us on the line right now. Doc, thank you for your time. As you build up to hear from your boss, is he there? Is he ready? And what are we expecting for him to say?
Well, even so, we are the Accra Business School right now, the main auditorium for this program. And let me highlight the program a little bit. This is a program by the school to launch 3 ICT-related programs as part of their academic programs that they run at the school. The Vice President was invited to this program somewhere about 2 to 3 months ago, and he agreed to do so. So basically, his main speech, the contract team for what he's going to talk about was centered on the team for this particular program, which is more on IT education. So that is basically what he's going to speak to. So a lot of the things we'll be talking about will be related to IT and education. But of course, as we said earlier, he also sees the opportunity to make 1 or 2 remarks on the present circumstances that we find ourselves as a country, and then issued by government to have a program with the IMF.
Okay, and that last bit is what I guess the entire country is waiting to hear him talk about. So 2 things you've mentioned towards the end, which is 1, the current economic situation, 2nd, the decision to go to the IMF. There are many who have said at this moment the facts doesn't matter as much as the form and what he says and how he says it. Are we going to see a vice president that will stick to trying to get the country along this very difficult path, or we're going to see him make points about how this economy is still better than the rest, and do make political comments? Or how is he attempting to take this on?
Let me say there isn't enough time for him to go into detail about the economy or the IMF program. Mind you, the signal by government to go for IMF program has to go through processes. Of course, the fund has sent a mission here to Ghana. They finished their work yesterday, issued a statement. Negotiations are going to begin. There are a lot of reconciliation of data and stuff that government will have to do with the IMF. So there's not a time to have a full-blown speech on IMF or the economy whilst negotiations are ongoing. So I must say it's not going to devote the whole time to talk about the economy or the IMF. That the purpose for which he came to the school. That is to launch the IT program. But as part of his presentation, he will talk about some aspects of the economy and the IMF. So I don't expect a full-blown speech or lecture on the economy where you have to pour out a lot of data, do a whole lot of analysis and all of that. No, we're not going to have that. We're going to make a comment or remark on the economy and the IMF, but it's not the usual public lectures that we do that we take the whole day to just discuss one subject. This is a launch of an academic program, and as part of that, it's going to make some remarks, but it's not remarks that will be so much in detail as we would expect originally from the lectures that we make, because we have to make sure government and the IMF negotiations are done. So when everything ramps up, that we can give a total view of how things are going. But of course, like you said, people are looking up to forward-looking measures and what is it that government will want to do going forward so that we don't have a risk back to the problems and the challenges that we find ourselves in. But as you say, it's not going to be a full-blown lecture or speech on the IMF or the economy.
Nonetheless, that's the vice president who chairs the economic management team. Does he appreciate the need at this moment to get the public, Ghanaians, along what is going to be a long road back to economic health? And how will that reflect in whatever he says today, no matter how brief, on the economy and the return to the IMF?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we have been partisan parties to get to democracy. I mean, all along, and I think it's now the government to carry these people along, whether in good times or in bad times. So the vice president is very mindful of that. Then I think there's no doubt about anybody. There's no doubt about the fact that he's mindful of what the sentiments are on the minds of people. So his presentation and everything should reflect that.
When he touches on the economy and the return to the IMF, should we expect a remorseful vice president, an apologetic one?
Well, I'm not too sure of remorsefulness or apology or ecstasy or whatever. He will speak as a normal human being, just as any other person do.
Forgive me, I struggle to hear that. We may have had a challenge with the line. Kindly repeat that.
I said I'm not sure of a mood of apology or remorsefulness or a mood of ecstasy. I mean, you will just speak as any other normal human being would do. So I'm not too sure how to describe mood for that presentation.
Okay, I mean, and very finally, though, still on that question, generally, within your ranks in the office and as you go by doing your work and around the vice president, what is his overriding sentiment about where the economy is right now?
Come again, Ivan.
I'm saying around the vice president, you work with him.
Yes.
What in the last few weeks when this has become, the economic crisis has become very apparent, what is his overriding sentiment about where we are as a country economically right now?
Yeah, I think Ivan, everybody is concerned about what is happening in the globe. I mean, whether you're in Ghana or you're in the United States or you live in the city or the village, you go to the market to buy foodstuffs and items, prices are increasing. Things are becoming harder for all governments. So everyone is concerned. I don't think there's anybody in this world who is not concerned about the development in the world economic architecture as we are experiencing today. And just as we are all concerned, the government from the president to those of us below, the ladder, all of us are concerned, the vice president inclusive. So it is our hope that we'll be able to scale over some of the hurdles that we're facing confronting the world as a country and then make sure that the economy and the country have the right for accelerated economic emancipation for everyone.
Dr. Gideon Bako, thank you very much. And he speaks
Thank you so much, Ivan.
For the vice president there. So very important comments at the end for me, gentlemen, that gives me an insight or a clue as to what the vice president may be saying and how he approached this. clearly from his last comment, the vice president will simply place this in the global context. And they are not moving away from that script. It's very clear that everybody is worried, if nobody is well, this is going on. So it's clearly going, we're going to hear him, when he talks about the economy, I expect him, from what he said, to say, well, listen, COVID, Ukraine, that script is not going away. I think that's something that we should just prepare for. That script is not going away. I asked the question about, is it going to be remorseful? Are we going to see a remorseful, apologetic vice president? I said, well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, so very clearly, we are not going to see that. And I think you can also take a cue from the vice president's boss, the president. Since we went to the IMF, I think he's spoken twice. He spoke at the Eid al-Fitr thing, and then he also spoke recently. I mean, there was an event at the Jubilee when he also spoke about the workers, about the workers should go. Okay, when he inaugurated the NLC board, if you listen to his posture, it was, we are in the economy, the world, the globe, etc. We are going to deal with it. I haven't seen what you guys have suggested should happen, which is a very remorseful, government that will tell you that, listen, we appreciate where we are, we run this economy, and we are not where we expected to be. It is our fault. We managed to get us here. Maybe we are sincerely sorry that we are where we are, but we are determined to get you out of this. I mean, that hasn't been a posture. And from everything Gideon had said, Dr. Bawumia, no matter how brief his comments will be on the subject of the economy and IMF, will not be one that will be apologetic, will not be one that will be remorseful, will be one that will certainly make the point that largely where we are right now isn't because we have failed or we are incompetent or mismanaged the economy. It's because Ukraine, it is because COVID and the world economic situation is difficult.
And I don't think that's going to change. Actually, I think deep within the hearts of virtually every government communication person, that's what they've been told to say. I'm yet to hear people break ranks, and I know that when they meet on their own, when the economic management team meet, when the cabinet meets, that's not what they tell themselves, because they know what has happened over the period. We know what has happened over the period.
And by the way, what you see on the screen are live pictures from the venue of the event. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I may have seen the World Bank country director at the event as well. Dr. Bawumia is seated there. We'll bring you the live speech when it's ready. Yes, you're making it.
Yeah, so saying that this is a country that in 2016, still under an IMF program, went into an election. And the current government made it very clear that going into an IMF program was purely out of incompetence, and the energy crisis and other things were signs of the incompetence that we actually put it there. They also made it clear that pushing us out of the IMF program was top-tier priority, because this government ought to be independent of the IMF. It's only incompetent managers of the economy that actually go to the IMF for some of these programs. Those were very clear messages that they sent. Fast forward, in 2017, we all knew that the government had 8% GDP growth rate. Then inflation was coming down. Many people had associated with the wonderful work that the government was doing. So under an IMF program, we could do 8%. Under an IMF program, the next year we did 6.5, and the following year we did 6.3. All put together, or around 6.3, 6.5 within the period. These were clearly in line with the projections that if you had watched October World Economic Outlook of the World Bank, projections for the new year 2017 and 2018. So the question would be, exactly what did the government do differently under the IMF program to get 8%? If it's not based on previous things that have been done, because within that particular year, you could count.
You're almost suggesting they inherited it. That growth.
You could count. I mean, it was a projection that came to.
Wow.
In fact, it could be worse, it could be better. That's actually also part of the conversation. But you could count the very things that happened in 2017.
Yeah.
And one will be so convinced that they are not necessarily out of the wonderful things that happened. One way you should know this is check the non-oil growth. The non-oil growth of less 4.6 was the same as that of 2016. So you could see where you could match the realities on the ground. We went into the next 3 years, still under an IMF program until 2019 when we exited. And let's also not forget that Even as of the time we're exiting, we have not completed every single conditionality. There was some we asked for waivers because we were very much a country that felt we were on our feet. We could be trusted. We could take enough of the very things that we wanted. Check the borrowing. It could send you a signal. Check, for example, the Eurobond we took over the period. It kept increasing. In the years after 2020, 2017, we didn't do any. 2018, 2019, and 2018, 2019, and 2020. Enough had been said about how just when we had left the IMF zone, we went into some crisis. If you want to know, read the very article about IMF, Ghana's lending case. Mm-hmm. It tells you about the difficulties we are likely to run into if fiscal discipline is not promoted. But also check within the period how much we borrowed in that 2019 year. And as of the month we are dealing with, the debt sustainability reports in that month has said that we're high risk of debt distress getting to the end of 2019. Mm-hmm. So when you see all these signals on the wall, when the professors were telling us that no, if you don't take care and continue on this path, you go for help from the IMF. This was before COVID. Yeah. All of these signals did not suggest that we were extraordinary managers of the economy, but we're not in a ditch. But we knew we were heading there. We knew things were not looking good. The people who raised the red flag and kept waving it, they were there. But we didn't listen to them until COVID came and worsened the situation. It's quite disingenuous. Let's consistently make it look like without COVID, it would have been sailing smooth. Because every single indicator shows we're not going to sail smooth. So, I mean, and that's politics anyway, but sometimes the leadership we require at this point is the one that's honest, is the one that is truthful, is the one that looks the people in the face and says, see, we messed up along the line, but we can get you back on the right track.
No politician will say that.
But you see, it gets to a point. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
No politician will be willing to admit that they have failed. But when it becomes obvious that you have a challenge, look, you can then assume a position of a statesman and say, let's solve this together.
John Kufuor said, I didn't know this was this.
Look, J.
I didn't wait for this and that. I want us to move in this direction.
In fact, J. Kufuor, he apologized. Yeah. When he was then, and he had a ceremony, then he says, oh, and now let me get to a statement that I made when I was in opposition, that I said I was going to reduce the number of ministers drastically. Yes, when I was in opposition, I didn't know what I know today. I am very sorry. Yeah. But let's just move away from that. Let me make, the point Raymond was trying to make.
But Mahama even did something close to that, which is the Sinchi.
Yes.
In that sense, to say, like everybody, let's all go together.
All of us go together and agree on what we want to do.
Yeah.
When Mahama was faced with the challenges, or the doomsday challenges, he said, this is a problem from old, but this is not a time to blame anybody. So I will fix it.
I remember him saying, I'll fix it.
I'll fix it.
Yeah.
Now, let me make my point. You see, Raymond makes the point. The non-oil GDP growth of 2017 would tell you that it was oil that actually triggered our growth of 2017 to the 8% that we've consistently talked about and made the world believe that it was based on the magical, based on the prudent management of the economy by those who took over in 2017. Prior to 2017, we already had the projections in place. We had a 10 fields coming on board. And so that's something you should expect. And you saw what we did in 2011 when we started oil production at the first time. 15%, we're the highest growing country in the world. That's what it will do to you because you didn't have that initially. So it adds up to your basket and then you're up. Let me get back and say this thing. Simply put, and as Marcus Ibeyeboa has alluded to, the decision to go to the IMF played a major role in the macroeconomic stability of the first 3 years of the Akufo-Addo administration. Let us not deceive ourselves. Let us not deceive ourselves. By 2019 October, you had economists telling you that we're going to be running to the IMF because at the time our appetite for borrowing was just too much.
So we're expecting Dr. Bawumia to be speaking pretty shortly. I've just seen that he's walked up. What you see on your screen is the welcome party dancing to usher him into his speech. And so I guess let's go in there, listen to a bit of the sounds, the sides, and wait to hear from the Vice President now.
Honorable Ministers of State, members of Parliament. We have here Honorable Samuel Atachia, Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa, Honorable Abeku Krensel, Honorable Joseph Apia-Boateng. We also have the National Security Coordinator, the Chairman and Governance Council of the Accra Business School, Bishop Gideon Titi Ofair, Lady Olivia Titi Ofair, co-founder, members of the Governing Council, representatives of Southeast Technological University, the President of Accra Business School, Professor Cedric Bell, the Vice President of Accra Business School, Professor Elvis Cornerstone, Registrar, faculty members, non-teaching staff, students, distinguished invited guests, the media, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to first of all thank the Chairman of the Governing Council of Accra Business School, Bishop Gideon Titi Ofair, and the management of the Accra Business School for extending an invitation to me to share a few remarks on this milestone event, the launch of 3 new programs that are in alignment with the times we find ourselves in. What I'd like to do today is to position my speech in the broader context in which it is nested. I'm going to focus on 5 realms that provide the architecture for these programs under the theme, the role of information technology education in government's digitalization agenda. So these 5 realms include making sense of the data deluge, ever-changing cybersecurity landscape, marketing in a noisy world, the automation advantage, and the overwhelmed by tech overload. The government and the stakeholders that exist to serve are rapidly becoming digital in every way. The shift to digital is a long-term trend that has been accelerated by COVID-19 and will continue with improving technology like the rollout of 5G. Now more than ever, digital must be at the forefront and at the center of government's priorities to meet user needs. For the education sector, considered to be the auxiliary backbone of Ghana, schools have surely had a challenging period these past 2 years. They have required new ways of working, an acceleration of digitalization, and a fresh perspective on future opportunities. COVID-19 and the resultant lockdown created a huge barrier between our youth and their education. Ghanaian companies and institutions, such as the Accra Business School, have rallied together to ensure that students receive access to schooling in innovative ways. The incredible work of our nation's educators ought to be acknowledged and celebrated. They have adapted to the challenges of the pandemic to prioritize education of their learners. I highly commend companies that are empowering our economy by uplifting our education sector. While education builds the foundation of an economy, high-quality education allows our nation's citizens to contribute more effectively to our economy and navigate the global landscape. The turbulence of our times has necessitated a nimble response to fast-rising demand for some sectors of the economy. For others, it has called for agility to cope with new limitations on deliverability and access to customers. In both scenarios, technology has emerged as a driving force and facilitator. The world, including Ghana, is heading towards a digital future. But while technology is often heralded as a solution for all seasons, having to traverse the digital landscape without a clear understanding of exactly what challenges it can solve is problematic. The introduction of information technology into classrooms is a necessity for the government's digitalization agenda. It is the perfect match for knowledge seekers everywhere, as the world is brought to them with concision and wit. An opportunity to learn the language of the digital future and the digital economy. The role of IT education in an increasingly interconnected and interdependent world transcends geographical boundaries, economies, and sectors. Over the past decade, information and communication technology, ICT, has helped create the most rapidly growing industry sectors, driven efficiency in government and business operations, and developed the essential building blocks of a knowledge-based economy. In this era of global integration, ICT becomes indispensable and embedded in everyday activities. The promises it offers seem limitless. It can provide governments, businesses, and citizens with access to relevant information and allow them to communicate, to make informed decisions, and enable more efficient processes and services to address various economic, social, financial, and educational needs. As a sector, ICT has contributed to the creation of the most rapidly growing industries such as electronics, business process outsourcing, the telecommunication and internet services. As an infrastructure, ICT is seen as an enabler of economic growth and competitiveness based on the uptake and utilization of ICT in business, education, and society. However, the asymmetrical level of ICT use and pace of ICT diffusion in Ghana have caused the uneven distribution of the benefits of ICT. This creates the digital divide within the country and among communities within it, and calls for attention and assistance from all to make sure we bridge the digital divide. Technology has developed in leaps and bounds over the last 20 years. It continues to advance. The educational system of this country should not be frightened of technology, but should harness it to provide a better and more efficient service to the public, which at the same time creates new avenues for revenue generation for the state and its citizens, and eventually improves the quality of life of Ghanaians. Ladies and gentlemen, in times of crisis and uncertainty, we look for signals to reaffirm who we are, how we should act, and where to go. Heading towards the digital future means that we need a significant transformation of our workforce to get most out of our organizations. IT education is pivotal in the government's digitalization agenda because it offers the opportunity to build human resources for general ICT literacy and ICT professional skills through the use of ICT to be applied in all sectors. Once the process of digitalization is implemented, new technologies within this digital environment not only represent a competitive edge for companies that can take advantage of their potential, but also provide a unique opportunity to innovate. Information technology education will help us in powering digital life by rethinking competition, capitalism, and the roots of collaboration between public and private sectors. Technology will be our servant, not our master. It provides the scope for our courts to resolve disputes more quickly and less expensively, for money to reach various destinations at the speed of sound, to expand market reach and lower cost of doing business, and generally expand the ability of businesses in all sectors to take advantage of global value chains. The widespread adoption of ICT can only be achieved through education. However, none of this can be achieved without a strong strategic center, making better use of data and building capability across the state's digitalization agenda. As the country emerges from the twin crises of the whole world is facing, we will take forward what we have learned to make sure that we use data more intelligently and sensitively in how we craft and deliver public services with ethical considerations. The COVID-19 pandemic gave fresh impetus to digital projects across the public sector, with so many services installed across government in response to COVID-19. So it is timely that today I can re-echo the government's digitalization ambitions. We pursue digitalization not for its own sake, but as a vehicle to solve problems faced by ordinary Ghanaians and transform the economy. Through digitalization, government has been able to solve many problems that have faced Ghanaians. Some of the problems go back to the period before and since independence. We inherited a problem of no unique national identification system. This has been with us since independence. We have implemented the national identification system of the Ghana card. And we have today 16 million Ghanaians with unique identities. And that is a major transformation. And maybe a lot of people sometimes don't even appreciate what the impact of the Ghana card is. But if you gave me 1,000 interchanges and a Ghana card, I'll choose the Ghana card because it has more impact on the economy. With the Ghana card, access to student loans today is without the need for a guarantor. You first needed a guarantor to give you a student loan. But with digitalization and the implementation of it, we now can access student loans without the need for a guarantor. We had no functional address system in Ghana. But with digitalization, we've implemented the digital address system, a national property digital address system, where you have addresses for every 5 by 5 square meter of land or water in Ghana. So we can find every place with a digital address in Ghana. And that is a major, major innovation, and that is one of the benefits of the digitalization agenda. Many of our Ghanaians in the diaspora were bearing the problem and cost of the acquisition of visas by diaspora Ghanaians. Many have in fact lost passports in the process of applying for visas from Ghanaian embassies abroad. But we have obtained ICAO certification for the Ghana card to be used as a travel document for travel to Ghana from abroad without the need for a visa, and you'll be able to go. We had no mobile money interoperability. You could not, in fact, transfer money from one mobile company to another. Today, we have instituted mobile money interoperability. You can transfer money from one mobile company to another, but also you can transfer money from a bank to a mobile wallet and vice versa. We are the first and the only country in Africa with this type of mobile money interoperability. The majority of adults in Ghana did not have a bank account. But today, with mobile money interoperability and the Ghana card, over 90% of adult Ghanaians either have mobile money account or a traditional bank account. Both perform practically the same function. And today in Ghana, to open a bank account, all you need is your Ghana card. You don't need to visit a bank. You don't need to fill a form. You just dial a USSD code, you put in your Ghana card number, and your account is open. And that is how you move. We are solving a problem that has bedeviled a lot of Ghanaians. For example, we have our Visa and MasterCards, which are generally not accepted for e-commerce abroad. I'm sure many of you have experienced some of the problems, and many people try to go through PayPal. But because of the progress we've made in our payment system architecture, we've engaged Visa and MasterCard, and now Ghana is going to be a processing hub for Visa and MasterCard, and the rejection of our cards for global e-commerce will now become a thing of the past later this year when we have difficulty of renewing the national insurance membership. Some of our people in the districts had to go and sleep for days just to renew their national insurance card. Today, because of digitization, you can renew your national insurance membership on your phone, pay within minutes, and it is done. We had difficulty and inconvenience in buying electricity units. And if your electricity units run out in the middle of the night, you have to wait till the next day and visit the ECG office. Today, because of digitization, we've digitized the process, and you can buy electricity units on your phone and without any problem. You had problems in obtaining passports. You had to deal with Goro boys and pay bribes. Today, the process is online, and you can apply for your passport without any hassle, pay your fees, and have it delivered. And what we have seen is quite remarkable and dramatic. When we started the digitization in 2017, the total revenue of the passport office was 1 million Ghana cedis. Today, it has jumped to 56 million Ghana cedis in 1 year. And that is a major, and the number of passports that people have applied for at the beginning of 2017, we had 16,000 a year. Today, 498,000, because you can sit at home and apply for it, and the revenue has gone up. We had a lot of problems with bureaucracy and corruption at the ports. Today, we have digitized the process of clearing goods at the ports. We have paperless ports, and that has really significantly reduced the corruption and bureaucracy at the port. We had difficulty and bureaucracy in applying for scholarships, but following the digitization of the scholarship secretariat, everyone is able to apply for scholarship and receive the scholarship in the comfort of their home via online applications. We had to deal with fake insurance certificates, motor insurance certificates, and the difficulty of checking the validity of motor insurance certificates. There were a lot of fake motor insurance certificates. And we have implemented and digitized the motor insurance database, which can be accessed very simply on your mobile phone by yourself or the police. And you can just dial a USSD code and know whether the vehicle you are about to board has insurance or not. Just this week in the UK, someone driving a Lamborghini was stopped, and the police officer was not able to tell whether this vehicle was insured. So they had to tow the vehicle. It came in the news because they couldn't establish whether the vehicle had insurance. Now they need to come and implement the motor insurance database, because they could have just used their phone to find out whether the vehicle was insured or not. So we are ahead of many of the advanced countries in this area. We are ahead. One of the problems we have had is the lack of transparency in accounting for travel expenses by government. You know, and when you are given per diems and accounting for it becomes a lot of difficulty. And so we have implemented and digitized the process with a government travel card through the Controller and Accountant General Department. So we have introduced a travel card for all government officials, which will keep a record of all payments made by officials during travel. So there will be no more kululu in the process of accounting for your travel. Very few people, when we came into office, only 4% of the adult population of Ghana had tax identification numbers. Only 4%. Now, with digitization, we turned the Ghana card ID into the tax identification number, and by so doing, we have increased the proportion of adults with tax identification numbers from 4% to 85% today. There's also the issue of fake birth certificates and so on. We've digitized that process and we are getting a whole lot from there. The GRA, it's also, there was a problem, the difficulty being experienced by people in filing and paying taxes. The GRA has completed the development of a mobile application which will simplify the tax filing and payment process. In fact, in this process, we had to meet with a few Makolo market women just to get a sense of how we needed to simplify the tax application process so that at the lowest levels or the highest levels or wherever level you are talking about, everybody should be comfortable filing taxes. So a mobile tax application has been developed. You can file that tax online, and once you do so, you will immediately get a tax clearance certificate if you have gone through. You don't need to apply separately for a tax clearance certificate. And we should be seeing this outlawed very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, football clubs and authorities lost a lot of revenue from corruption associated with ticketing for football matches. Now, we have digitized the process of football ticketing, and suddenly their revenue has skyrocketed amongst football clubs. So we have had a whole lot of reform as a result of digitization. We had difficulty in accessing medicines and blood in remote areas, and we have introduced drones in the delivery of critical medicines, vaccines, and blood to people in remote parts of the country. Ghana has the largest medical drone delivery service in the world, the whole world. We have 6 zipline distribution centers in Omenako, Mpanya, Bopsi, Sefivioso, Ketikrachi, and Enum. We are just left with 2 more to be done, which would complete in Funsi and in Techiman, also Kintampo, so that with those 2, we will then be covering the whole of Ghana, right? We have just 2 more to cover the whole of Ghana with delivery of medicines, blood, vaccines by drones. And it is saving lives every day. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me now go back to the 5 realms that I mentioned earlier in my introduction. Making sense of the data deluge. Being a small and externally oriented economy, Ghana has been particularly sensitive and responsive to the effects of globalization. We have been active participants in the international community and must continue to do so, as our future depends on our active engagement with the globalized world, which encourages the free flow of trade, capital, and knowledge. Our universities must provide a platform for students to prepare for the future by exposing students to a multicultural learning and social environment so that they will be willing and able and competitive enough to work effectively in Africa, Europe, America, Asia, or elsewhere. Unlike budget, capacity, and time, one thing Ghanaian businesses are not short of is data. Traditionally, big data has been assumed to belong to the realm of big business. But things are changing. There is growing awareness of data management solutions for smaller operations, but further education and convincing are required. Now, the ever-changing cybersecurity landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, the digitization era is witnessing the growing threats of cyber attacks on different businesses and institutions. News of Australian small and medium-scale businesses and firms of different sizes and capacities in the US and other developed countries, as well as state institutions like what happened in the UK Army, are being targeted with ransomware cyber threats, have emerged as a source of growing concern. While security has long been a fundamental consideration, until recently, there has been a widespread lack of understanding as to the extent of cyber threats to organizations other than large corporates. Awareness of potential security breaches and their ramifications is something businesses and state institutions are now seeking. The rise of ransomware attacks on different businesses and institutions has brought home the point that cybersecurity is a serious concern for organizations of every size. Marketing in a noisy world. Online presence is a requirement, but it would seem the bigger the marketing budget, the better known the brand. Yet marketing is a must for ongoing growth and market share for any enterprise. The digital age has meant that businesses rely less on traditional marketing methods, which in many ways has made messaging the masses more accessible. From social media to time-saving artificial intelligence, list building, there are many exciting marketing options for businesses in all sectors of the Ghanaian economy. Maximizing budget is everything, and there is a great deal of focus and concern in the entrepreneurial community about employing people who understand how to maximize, reach, and produce the campaigns and the content to do so. Marketing in a noisy world is both easier and more complex. The question is, how do you know you're doing everything possible to attract new customers and get your brand in front of the people looking for a small business like yours? The automation advantage. While many institutions can sense the opportunities that the digitalization agenda offers, the abundance of opportunities also makes it difficult for institutions to make appropriate choices on how far and where they should go. In this context, I would like to suggest a guiding principle that should apply to all institutions. Whatever initiatives that an institution is pursuing, they have to be done with the prime objective to enhance the quality of life of Ghanaians. Many business ventures are exploring and embracing automation to streamline business processes and increase efficiencies. There are many options available to automate basic, repetitive, rules-based tasks, allowing them to reduce human error and free up employee time to work on more creative, growth-building tasks. With more and more low-cost automation solutions available, there is an enthusiasm to learn more and discover real-world examples of how they can automate areas such as marketing, sales, operations, and finance. It is clear that there are some tasks that can and should be automated to create more efficiency and free up employees to make better use of their time. And there's always that worry that if we don't, our competitors will. Being overwhelmed by tech load. Ladies and gentlemen, the pandemic has accelerated the digital transformation of most industries, and those that have embraced it have some experience with the benefits of cloud services, connectivity, and mobility and automation. Understanding that these categories of technology are available is one thing, but navigating them is another. Right now, industry leaders are inundated with information and overwhelmed with technology options. The overabundance of choice adds to the pressure of knowing where to begin to find a solution that will work seamlessly with existing systems and satisfy future goals. There is a fear of the known unknown. Selecting the right solution is more important than selecting the right vendor. Vendors tend to push technology, not solutions. Small businesses don't care much about technology. It's more about business outcomes. Tech vendors value the complexity of a solution and therefore the cost of investing. There is a need to first establish trust that solutions work before understanding the technology. At the heart of these 5 realms is the role of information technology education to determine a solution's likelihood of meeting the following criteria. Establish the problem to determine the solution, with emphasis needs to be on solving business challenges rather than the technology itself. Ease of integration within business, understand the potential return on investment for the business with defined and quantitative outcomes. And these are critical criteria. Ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, I'd like to use this opportunity, because this is the first time I'm speaking publicly in a little while. I'd like to use this opportunity to make some comments on an issue on the minds of many Ghanaians, which is the decision by government to opt for an IMF program to stabilize the economy in the midst of global crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, the Russia-Ukraine war, a global crisis that has visited untold hardships on Ghanaians, with rising prices of virtually everything, from fuel to bread to tomatoes, building materials, and so on. In the midst of this global crisis, Ghana's fiscal and debt sustainability has worsened. Some commentators and analysts have argued that the COVID-19 expenditures by government alone could not be the reason for the large increase in the fiscal deficit and the debt stock. In fact, they are right. The COVID-19 expenditures alone were not the reason for the large increase in Ghana's debt stock by the end of 2021. In fact, as I stated in my April 7th lecture this year, in addition to COVID-19, there are 2 major items of expenditure that are critical in understanding the evolution of the fiscal deficit and the debt stock. And these 2 items are the banking sector cleanup and the energy sector excess capacity payments. The excess capacity payments of 17 billion Ghana cedis relate to a legacy of take-or-pay contracts that saddled our economy with annual excess capacity charges of close to $1 billion a year. These were basically contracts to supply energy to Ghana way in excess of our requirements at the time. But we were obligated to pay for the power whether we used it or not. The excess capacity payments of this 17 billion includes a 7 billion cedi payment for gas resulting from the signing of an offtake agreement for a fixed quantity of gas with ENI Sankofa on a take-or-pay basis, which was way in excess of what was needed at the time. Not keeping up with the excess capacity payments would have meant throwing the country back into a new bout of doomsday or power outages. We were also confronted with a banking crisis as a result of the mismanagement of the banking sector. Ghana's banking system was on the verge of collapse, and not dealing with it decisively would have meant a disaster for the economy, with millions of people losing their savings. So we had direct COVID-19 expenditures amounting to 12 billion Ghana cedis. We had the banking sector cleanup costs amounting to 25 billion Ghana cedis, and the excess capacity payments amounting to 17 billion Ghana cedis. And the data shows that the three items, when you take COVID, banking sector cleanup, and the excess capacity payments, cumulatively amounted to 54 billion Ghana cedis. And that is the equivalent of $7 billion US. Three items, $7 billion US that of expenditure which had to be taken. You couldn't say you wouldn't spend to rescue the banking sector because you are in trouble. The economy will collapse. You couldn't say you won't pay excess capacity payments because you will have power outages. You couldn't say you wouldn't spend on the COVID because we had a job to save lives. So the Ministry of Finance estimates, and this money, this $54 billion, was borrowed money. The Ministry of Finance estimates that the interest payment on just this 54 billion Ghana cedis that was borrowed for these three items is 8.5 billion Ghana cedis annually. And this represents 23% of our annual interest payments of about 37 billion Ghana cedis. So to put the expenditure on these three items in perspective, it is important to juxtapose it against the total expenditure releases on some of the government's key flagship projects, including the free SHS, the One District, One Factory, Planting for Food and Jobs, Development Authorities, the Ghana Card, Zongo Development Fund, NAPCO, Teacher Training Allowance, Nursing Training Allowance. The data shows that the expenditure on these flagship policies that I've mentioned, the total expenditure by government on these flagship policies over a 5-year period amounted to 15.6 billion Ghana cedis. 5 years of free SHS, NAPCO, and all of that, 15.6 billion Ghana cedis. And this is compared with the 54 billion Ghana cedis expenditure on the three exceptional items. So the expenditure on the three exceptional items is more than 3 times the expenditure on the flagship programs over 5 years. In fact, the annual interest cost of the borrowing, the 54 billion for the three exceptional items would pay for double the annual cost of all the flagship programs I've referred to. So it should be noted, ladies and gentlemen, that without the 54 billion debt for the three exceptional items, the COVID-19, the financial sector cleanup, and the energy sector excess capacity payments, Ghana's debt to GDP would be within the sustainability thresholds of some 68% instead of the 76.6% at the end of 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, following the Russia-Ukraine war, energy and food prices skyrocketed globally. For many advanced economies, inflation reached 30 and 40-year highs. Inflation in Ghana has increased to 29.8% in June 2022. Global supply chains were disrupted and shipping costs increased by over 1,000%. Economic growth slowed down. Higher revenue projections in the 2022 budget based on tax exemptions, property rates, and the e-levy did not materialize. The debt sustainability analysis continued to place Ghana at a high risk of debt distress. There was a credit ratings downgrade by the international credit ratings agencies. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, before COVID-19, Ghana was borrowing some $3 billion annually from the international capital market. But following COVID-19, the international capital markets have been largely inaccessible by emerging market countries like Ghana. Furthermore, as a result of increases in interest rates in the developed economies and increased perceived risk of emerging market economies, investors have pulled $50 billion from emerging market bond funds just in this year, in 2022. 50 billion have been pulled. Non-resident holders of bonds in Ghana were not also rolling over maturities. In a decline in foreign exchange reserves also resulted. With the challenges in accessing the international capital market, balance of payment support was needed to bridge this financing gap, stabilize the economy, and create the space to implement structural reforms and restore debt sustainability. And this is really the reason why Ghana had to go to the IMF. I should again note that Ghana has been hit with a quadruple whammy. A quadruple whammy. The energy sector excess capacity payments, banking sector cleanup, COVID-19, and the Russia-Ukraine war. We have been hit by this quadruple whammy. And I say again that if you take out the fiscal impact of this quadruple whammy, Ghana will not be going to the IMF for support because our fiscal and debt and balance of payments outlook would be sustainable. Of the four factors, COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war were external, and the other two, the banking sector cleanup and the excess capacity payments, were the result of policies of the previous government. Today, all over the world, fuel prices are rising in virtually every country. Food prices are rising, inflation is high, it's at a high for many years, currencies are falling in value, fiscal deficits are rising, debt levels are increasing. This is happening globally, and this tells us that what we are dealing with is a global phenomenon. Let me give you an analogy to make my point. If you ask a carpenter to roof your house, and he roofs this house, and suddenly the roof collapses without any rainfall or wind, suddenly you have a collapsing of the roof. Will you not blame the carpenter who did the roofing? Will you not blame the carpenter? But if the carpenter roofs your house and the roof collapses because there's a tornado and a storm which has blown away roofs and windows and walls of many houses, will you blame the carpenter? Will you blame the carpenter? So, let us understand the context. Let us understand the context. In one situation, you will definitely blame the carpenter. In another situation, you will blame the tornado. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are interested in the way forward. Whatever is the cause, we are dealing with an economic crisis. Unfortunately, judging from where we are today, there is no end in sight for the Russia-Ukraine war. While we hope for a quick end to the war, we must understand that things could get worse before they get better. We have to steel ourselves for that because we just don't know when this war is going to end. The major lesson of the last 2 years is that we have to be more self-reliant. It is important that we take decisions that will inure to the benefit of the country, regardless of whether we are going to the IMF for a program or not. Regardless, we have to take the decisions that will help Ghana. The immediate task is to restore fiscal and debt sustainability, and these will be through revenue and expenditure measures and structural reforms. There's no way of going about that. We should also try and curtail non-concessional borrowing. That has to be curtailed. Indeed, the reliance on international capital markets to fill the financing gap of about $3 billion annually exposed the vulnerability of the economy once the capital markets shut down to emerging markets. This has heightened the need for Ghana to build foreign exchange reserve buffers to cater for unanticipated shocks like COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war. Ladies and gentlemen, notwithstanding that Ghana is one of the largest producers of gold in the world, and we have been so for almost 100 years, notwithstanding that, at the end, Ghana's reserves of gold at the central bank, we this largest producer of gold, notwithstanding that, Ghana's reserves of gold at the central bank at the end of 2021 was only 8.7 kilograms. That is our quantum of gold reserve. And it is against this background that the Bank of Ghana started a gold purchase program from gold producers to build up its foreign exchange reserves. To enhance this gold purchase program, government is implementing a new policy, which is already backed by law. And under this new policy, the Bank of Ghana, the central bank, will have the first right of refusal for all gold mined in Ghana. We will have the first right of refusal. The law says if you mine gold, we can buy it off you. And so the central bank will have the first right of refusal, and the central bank will purchase the gold at world market prices, and the mining companies will export the portion that is not purchased by the central bank. This is a very, very important policy. Ultimately, once we accumulate enough gold, our future borrowing and our currency can be backed by gold. This will stabilize the city in the long term. We must also deepen our industrialization through value addition to gold. Even though Ghana has 2 gold refineries, none has the London Bullion Market Association certification, and this limits our full participation in the gold value chain. We will urgently work towards LBMA certification for our refineries in the next few years. Value addition to minerals such as lithium and bauxite will similarly be pursued, in addition to our 1D, 1F program and the continued implementation of the automotive sector policy. We are building, and we have to build, an industrial economy. We are also poised for major reform in the energy sector. The energy sector has proven to be an Achilles heel of the economy, and the reforms will make the sector more market-based. The investment in technical and vocational education has been massive, and we will continue to focus on technical and vocational education training to provide the skills needed for industry. Domestic revenue mobilization is key to self-reliance. We have put in place the architecture and infrastructure to expand the tax base and collect more taxes. A new unified common platform for the collection of property taxes is going to be soon outdoored. We are rationalizing tax exemptions through the tax exemptions bill. We are easing of the filing of taxes and payment for taxes through the new GRA application. The new architecture for domestic revenue mobilization should be fully operational by the end of the year. The circumstances call for an increased focus on agricultural production in the face of predicted global food shortages. And digitalization, as we have just noted, is key to our participation in the fourth industrial revolution, and we must therefore deepen the digitalization of the economy. It is important to note, ladies and gentlemen, that the focus of economic management by successive governments since independence in Ghana has been on crisis management as a result of factors such as the collapse in commodity prices, increase in oil prices, debt unsustainability, political instability, and so on. So governments since independence have tended to focus on crisis management. Governments have by and large not focused on building systems and institutions that underpin economic activities in a modern economy. The systems that will reduce bribery and corruption, the systems that will make the delivery of public services efficient, the systems that will enhance domestic revenue mobilization, and the systems that will reduce the cost of doing business and make it easier for Ghanaians. I should note that Ghana has gone to the IMF for a program 17 times since independence. And after each IMF program, the underlying system and structure of the economy has remained the same. After each of the 17 IMF programs, Ghana did not have a national ID card, no functioning national digital property address system, only 30% of the adult population had a bank account, inefficiency, bureaucracy, and bribery at the ports and in delivery of government services, no digitization at the passport office, DVLA, births and deaths, no motor insurance database, no credit scoring for credit reference agencies, less than 4% of the population had a tax identification number, and there was no integration of databases of the GRA, SNIT, Controller and Accountant General, NHIS, Ghana Health Service, Passport Office, DVLA, police, immigration, bank accounts, and SIP cards with a unique identifier. There was no such integration. There were no drones to deliver medical supplies, no universal QR code, no national scale e-pharmacy, no unified common platform for property taxation, no gold purchase program by the Bank of Ghana with a first right of refusal by the central bank for all gold mined in Ghana, no focus on TVET education, no industrial policy like 1D, 1F, no overarching agricultural policy like planting for food and jobs, and no free senior high school education. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking now about a different Ghana, a Ghana that is being rapidly transformed. The underlying systems are being dramatically changed through digitalization and other policies that will transform the structure of the economy. With enhanced fiscal discipline and structural reforms to restore debt sustainability and growth, we should emerge stronger than we have with the previous 17 IMF programs. But it will take hard work and difficult decisions. Ladies and gentlemen, with great pride and personal pleasure, it is good that we are all part of this launch of the 3 new programs by the Accra Business School in collaboration with the Southeast Technical University. It's a day when the neglect of many decades comes to an eventual end. It's a beginning to lay foundations of strengthened institutions to take up the challenges of time with an able and apt workforce. It's a day when a new beginning is being made by forging a common alliance between the government and academic leaderships to protect, preserve, and promote, above all, democracy via digitalization. And to turn this dream into a formidable reality, I launched the academic programs of the BSc IT Management, BSc Cybercrime and IT Security, MSc IT Management. It is a great day, and I know that this is a great school. It's a first-class school, and I'm saying to people who are thinking about careers in IT, these are the sort of courses you want to take if you want to be part of the digital. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless our whole
So that is the chairman of the economic management team. Boy, what a delivery on the IMF decision. So let's put it very simply. There are 4 reasons, according to Dr. Bawumia, that got us to go to the IMF. The first 2 reasons are external. The second 2 is because of NDC. Gentlemen, discuss.
Well, I'm sure that Ghanaians will be the better judges. But let me just say this. I mean, we've been asking the simple question. And for once, I thought that Dr. Bawumia was going to get away from the usual NDC is the cause of our problem. He tried. Reading the statement, I realized that, he tried to get away from it. But unfortunately, he fell in it and then went back to this same thing. Look, what we are faced with, you say, the NDC created all of these problems. You borrowed 54 billion, you say, for a banking sector cleanup and excess capacity and COVID-19. 54 billion minus 391 billion would give you 347 billion. Okay? When it gets there, you ask yourself that simple question. 337 billion. You ask yourself that simple question. Out of the 337 billion, has that not played any role in where we find ourselves today? Could we have implemented the financial sector cleanup in a better way so we don't have to spend 25 billion? The last time I saw a question in Parliament and an answer when it comes to how much we have spent on the take or pay contracts, some $900 million. Evans, this is my simple conclusion. What we face today is not because somebody did not manage the economy properly. What we face today...
No, he says somebody did.
Hold on.
But not
Hold on. I'm coming.
Yeah.
So I'm making the point in relation to Dr. Bawumia.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not saying, what we are faced with today is not because the NDC mismanaged the economy. Mm-hmm. What we are faced today is because the NPP mismanaged the economy. Mm-hmm. And why do I say that? I'll say that briefly. Because from 2015 to 2019, we're under an IMF program. You took over in 2017. The very program that gave you all the good things you talked about and trumpeted and said it was a symptom of your good management of the economy. Mm-hmm. Then you turn around and say, oh, when a carpenter, I am guided by one thing. Hate John Mahama all you like. But when it mattered most, he did not blame anybody for the doomsday. He said, yes, this is as a result of years. But as a leader, I will fix it. Dr. Bawumia, does well a little bit when he talks about the things we're doing. But again, we're expecting a departure from...
No, but here's the thing. If you misdiagnose the problem, your solutions are often, most often
So let me just chip this in.
We'll not
he talks about all the things we're going to do. Please. Did the MPP not say they were going to move this country from taxation to production?
No. So that's the point. Everything he said they are doing now to fix it.
Were things they said they were going to do.
Yeah. They said even before they came to power.
Before they came into office, and there were things they said they were doing.
Yeah.
And it was the reason the country was developing.
After almost 6 years.
You are saying the
same thing.
And I ask myself the simple question.
And here what they say. If you keep doing the same things and expect different results, you've been doing these things, and has landed you in this current economic crisis. He's saying we are going to do the same things going forward.
Look, when Dr. Bawumia in opposition was against borrowing to spend on consumption, right? Did we borrow to spend on consumption? Did we?
But he says it's COVID.
Oh, hold on. Did we borrow to spend on consumption?
Yeah, we did. But he says it's COVID.
Was it only COVID that we borrowed to spend on? Is that only consumption we spent on? So can we then go ahead and say that of all the money that the NPP borrowed, they spent on capital expenditure?
Like which capital expenditure?
Exactly. That's the question I'm asking.
Specific projects.
Where are the projects?
Self-financing projects.
Where are the projects that the NPP can beat his chest and say, this is what we have done?
But he points to the projects.
Where are they?
He says the projects are in excess capacity. They're in banking sector.
So it is the NPP.
No, but that's what he said.
54. Okay, no, 50.
He said the billions.
Hold on.
Yes.
50, okay, hold on.
That's where the money has gone.
Hold on. Let me do this, statistical analysis. You see that?
And free.
Hold on. You said free
flagship program.
Free
Sorry, I mean it's a flagship program.
Hold on.
That's 12 billion.
Evans, I want to come to the flagship program.
Yes.
But let me just do this calculation. 54 billion.
Yeah.
Plus 24 billion. Because he talks about, we spent, so the financial sector cleanup started in 2018. So let me just start from there and say, for the next 3 years, let me be charitable and say, so 8.5 plus 8.5 is 17, plus 8.5, so it takes you to 25.5. Add it, 25.5, so that's 80 billion. Fantastic. Minus 391 billion. Okay? Now, let's get to our debt. 1 minute, let's get to our debt. So that takes you to...
We have to go back to the ground and get a reaction quickly.
Okay, so 310 billion. Subtract 122 billion from it. That gives you 190 billion. From independence to, at the time as NDC left office, 122 billion. You say you did not cause the other one. So let me take it out of it. 190 billion. What did you do with it?
Okay, I want to take you back to the venue, and let's get some reactions live from there. Maxwell Agbagba, I believe, is standing by with the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee in Parliament, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa. Maxwell. If you can hear me, I understand that you have Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa there with you. I'm curious, he possibly given us the first NDC reaction to the pronouncement by Dr. Bawumia tonight that the government went to the IMF, one, because of NDC's government policies, and two, because of external factors. Maxwell? Okay, we'll get Maxwell to join us pretty shortly and get a reaction of Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa. Rapidly, let me hear from Raymond.
For me, it's the same song. The same song. We have done nothing. But for NDC, the Ghanaian economy would have been better. 6 years after assuming office.
But for NDC, they would have gone to the IMF.
6 years after assuming office, you're still blaming the opposition. If this is not failure, what else is it?
Raymond.
Quite frankly, at some point, we have to depart from this kind of politics, right? We have to be a little bit more forward-looking. We have to cover some basic grounds. And I was expecting that, if not for nothing at all, he will leave it at, well, we've had some external shocks, and even if you're going to admit to what we have done on our own, we've had some external shocks and we try to weather it and all of that. We issued bonds to try and deal with the financial sector cleanup. People today, some of them have not even been paid. There are people whose monies are still locked up in this same financial sector cleanup. If you move it along the lines that we are talking about, it's almost insulting when you create the impression that every good thing that happened between 2016 and 2019 was your doing. Good GDP, wonderful inflation, wonderful improvements in our fiscal balance and everything, even though 7.5% all those things were happening. You admit all of them were your wonderful work. But when it comes to how much you spend to clean up a banking sector, the way others told you not to do it, but you chose as a modus, the amount we are talking about involved here, People said, no, don't go that route. Government said, this is the best way to do it. But you chose it. You made decisions on your own. You're not compared by the previous government to do so. But when you come down 5 or 6 years later, and you come and blame the government that left, the government you said was incompetent, all of their wrongs you have righted, including having to change the situation that you got better macroeconomic figures, macroeconomic indicators from GDP straight down to inflation. If you today still say that, but when it comes to the wrongs that happened after that, they are to blame for it. At some point, there's a lot of dishonesty in our politics that ought to be taken out. It doesn't make sense when you are doing these things, especially at the time.
You're not suggesting Dr. Bawumia is being dishonest?
No, I'm saying that it's because I told you that this is the kind of speech he was going to make. Because that's how we have actually built our politicians to behave. We have not.
To be fair, Winston was expecting something different.
No, I was.
We have not.
I'm disappointed anyway.
We have not imbibed in them the honesty that's required for people to look in the face of their own and say, listen, let's not do blame game now. Let's look into the future together, because I need you to rally behind us and we'll fix this problem together. That is what leadership does. Leadership does not start off by telling you that, well, half of the problems, either God gave us that problem, COVID and the others, we didn't create it. The other half, my
NDC.
ex did it. So the previous administration actually brought in those ones. When you start doing things, you are dividing the front of the nation going into even this engagement. The people we've been trying to get them to agree with you on these plans, be it in parliament over 1 billion, be it in whichever space, they'll start antagonizing you. Who wins at the end of the day?
But here's the thing, Raymond.
It's completely unacceptable.
But he brought facts to the table. Facts are sacred. Just a second.
Let's be fair.
Just a second.
Every government takes over from another government what they have done.
Yeah,
so the NDC also comes to this that, when we go into government, the MPP
just a question.
No, talking about facts.
But he brought facts to the table.
So, I mean,
he talks about the excess capacity that they're paying. He mentioned how much it's cost us. It talks about which other one did he blame the NDC for? Excess capacity and the other one.
The banking sector cleanup.
The banking sector cleanup, which he says is because of their mismanagement. He brought that number to the table. Then he goes back to the Ukraine and COVID, and it talks about how much we have to spend because of that. Wait.
Pass the back all the time.
No, but those are hard numbers that he says amounts to 54 billion.
Yes.
That equivalent of $7 billion.
And I'm telling you that the choice
those are hard
the
facts.
banking sector cleanup with 25 billion was your own choice. Nobody asked you to use 25 billion.
But his point today is that we could not have avoided dealing with that problem.
Evans.
Yes, but if you decide today that your kids...
That it was inevitable,
yes,
because they inherited the problem.
The problem is that
had to be
your
addressed.
kids will require a car to go to school.
Yeah.
You chose a Mercedes-Benz. You decided that you had option of a Kia Picanto or any of the other ones on the table. You chose a Mercedes-Benz, a more expensive, maybe less even effective process to go through that. Then you come today and say that you created the problem of having kids without a car to go to school in the first place. Are you being honest?
Yeah.
Evans, we had a choice on how to go about the financial sector cleanup. Let me be very honest with you. The moment today, if I close any financial institution, a lot of people would mass up at other financial institutions requesting the
They'll be run on the banks.
Once that happens, if the Bank of Ghana cannot give them a liquidity of last resort, a lender of last resort, can give them money, that financial institution will begin running into problems. Okay? So that one, the way we went about the financial sector cleanup, we don't have time for us to go on it again and point to the fact that we could have done that differently. Talk about statistics. I have told you, and don't ask me the next question, I have told you that there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. I can go and create a chart and tell you that minus VAR, this would have been the winner of the English Premier League. Is that not possible?
Yes.
Is that not possible?
Yeah.
I can pick and choose what will suit me. Do an analysis and show
And as VAR, United would have probably...
I can pick and choose to tell you a story. That's the essence of statistics. It's a pick and choose thing. I can always do that. So my point is, you pick and choose. And as you pick and choose, I am also drawing your attention to what you left out, okay? I am drawing attention to what you left out because you told us that per the amount of money the NDC have borrowed, you would have constructed thousands of roads while you were in opposition. You're faced with that same situation today. What has changed?
Governments make decisions. In all fairness, government makes situations. Ghana is a continuum. You make decisions as you go. You decide to borrow. You decide to borrow excessively for whichever programs you are put in place. Yeah. You cannot come back and tell us that you spent so much on free SHS and other government programs, including one village, one dam.
No,
where are the dams?
No, he actually said,
where are the dams?
The argument today is actually that on the flagship programs, they spend far, far less in comparison.
But it's 15 billion, he says.
15 billion you're talking about. It's part of the amount of money you are dealing with
which
now.
includes nursing and teacher trainee allowance.
Yeah.
Yes.
The man who is
all of those decisions you made on your...
The man who is picketing, he can't get a job.
Yeah.
You paid him an allowance.
Yeah.
While he was in school, only for him to leave school, and you can't give him a job.
So we need to wrap up, and I think it's appropriate to end with the Bawumia speech. Considering the fact that it says 50% of the reason why they went to the IMF is due to external factors.
Yes.
It was him who said that the external factors that John Mahama was dealing with, how come they jumped
all the other countries?
They jumped Cote d'Ivoire, they jumped Togo, they jumped Burkina Faso, they jumped Nigeria, and landed in Ghana alone.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the question he needs to answer.
What we are faced with today, how come it jumped Cote d'Ivoire?
Yeah.
How come it jumped Nigeria?
Yeah.
How come it jumped all the countries and came straight to Ghana?
Yeah.
If this is not economic mismanagement, what else would it be?
So, listen, there's going to be a lot more to analyze, the bones to pick from Dr. Bawumia's speech. But the major takeaway tonight, Bawumia outlines 4 major reasons why the government, his government, went to the IMF. He blames the NDC for that decision and blames external factors. Out of the 4, 2 are external. The next 2 are NDC created. That's what we take away mainly from his speech. There's a lot more to talk about, including what he says the government is doing to reverse the problem. But he paints a picture of Ghana, he says, is a Ghana today that will exit the IMF much stronger than we've ever done in the last 17 programs we've been to the IMF. There's a lot to really pick on this, and we'll do so in the subsequent bulletins, Top Story, Newsnight, and here on Prime. And right now, indeed, Johnson Nketia is in the studio right after us with Blaise Soga on the Pulse. Stay with us.